Let's have a look at this Jeffrey Epstein story. This is confusing to me. I mean, the headline, which has been said 1,000 times, is the point that Ghislaine Maxwell does correctly make, is that given this is meant to be industrial-scale abuse of young girls by rich and powerful men, the only person inside a prison cell is a woman.
Is a woman. You know, that just fits into that misogynistic, patriarchal narrative, doesn't it? And, you know, it's not... I mean, obviously what happened there was things that happened there that is just beyond comprehension. There was paedophilia there, clearly, because it's alleged that the girls were under the age of consent, and the fact it's alleged that there's non-consensual acts of sexuality as well, and sex acts. And, you know, you said that it cost Prince Andrew dearly. It did, because he had to step back from public duty. But the financial, fiscal cost of tens of millions of pounds, you know, people in this country will look to that and say, well, we helped fund the monarchy. We paid for that. We want answers.
Fair point.
So there's many victims to this, notwithstanding, of course, Stephen Hawking. I mean, who would have thought his name would have been in the frame? Microsoft, Bill Gates, we've already heard his name before as well. Of course, this is all alleged. There's been nothing proven, but the only one that's in prison at the moment is Ghislaine Maxwell.
Which is extraordinary. It should be said as well, a lot of the people named are people that happen to know him, went on his plane or went to an island. I mean, because, you know, on that basis...
But Ian, did you read as well, interestingly, that Trump has been, for want of a better word, almost exonerated? Because he has been, you know, alleged, but he has actually been, it's been proven by the fact that he didn't go on any of Epstein's jets or planes, he didn't take any of his calls, and he wasn't, in fact, a crony of his, which is quite surprising considering the rest of the...
But he's been photographed with him, though, hasn't he, in the past? But, I mean, that's not the point, is it? Because, I mean, there is a reasonable defence, because otherwise we'd have to say that any of us who know somebody today, if the person you know goes on to commit some horrendous crime, are we therefore all guilty by association because we once knew them? Exactly. And that's the problem, isn't it? There's lots of other celebrities that are momentarily mentioned, very briefly in this as well, some really famous A-listers, but they're not accused of anything.
Yeah, but there's also the other problem, and we've been discussing this in our house recently, about naming people perpetrators of crime. Right.
Particularly these kind of crimes.
Particularly, and I don't think that's healthy. I don't think it's relevant. But apparently the reason is if you name someone that if you believe that you've been raped or sexually abused, and you go to the police and you make a complaint and you want this dealt with, to name the person is actually to enable any other person who's felt that they've actually been affected by the same ill-gotten violence as well, or sex crimes or whatever. So it doesn't sit well with me. I would rather people had, you know, a fair trial instead of now being tried by media, tried by public. I wish it would be done behind closed doors and let the victims process what's happened to them, and hopefully justice will be served.
I would agree. And I think with... You know, the other thing you have to remember, before anybody really knew much about Epstein in this respect, you know, he was a philanthropist, he was a very rich man. He did put on flights to different conferences around the world. It wouldn't be uncommon that somebody like Gates or Stephen Hawking would be at one of those events. So, by association, people... I mean, I'm looking... If ever there was an argument to close down social media, it was today.
I agree with
some of the stuff that is being written out there is unbelievable.
Some of the memes as well.
Oh, the memes as well. Yeah, there's some... I know that there's, you know, gallows humour, and there's some... There are some sort of interesting interpretations in that sort of dark humour kind of way. But... it's the people that purport to be serious journalists. They're not. They're just somebody, you know, who self-identifies as a journalist.
Good point there,
who posts lots of stuff and says, you know, I am told that, you know, this A-lister, that A-lister were also... Well, they might have been on an island. They might have been on a plane. Doesn't make them a sex offender or a paedophile. I know. I mean, if you extend that, then lots of people by association. You know, so then you get people who... So, well, Donald Trump did nothing wrong, but Donald Trump had previously confessed to being a sex offender himself. You know, he said, you know, he talked about... And then you got Bill Clinton, who we know, he likes them young. Well, we know he had a ding-dong with a 22-year-old intern some years ago, and she was 22 when he was the president. So that shouldn't be news. I wouldn't surprise me at all.
Bill Clinton's quite interesting, actually, because, you know, professionally as a politician, he was wonderful for the Good Friday Agreement. You know, he did a lot of work for... Molam at the time and Blair, and he was a great statesman. And when he was senator of Albuquerque, I think was his state, you know, he was apparently a wonderful senator. He was great for the people.
Loads of those, he was insatiable when he couldn't. He had to lock up the cushions in the Oval Office.
Monica Lewinsky.
Monica Lewinsky.
You know, you wonder what on earth his daughter and his wife Hillary actually had to put up with.
Yeah.
It's
and
a
they
shame.
still
it's
get
a shame.
They still get snapped as the happy family as well,
Oh,
which I don't believe for 1 second.
It's so sad.